While Israeli officials warn about Iran's military buildup, Israel says it has uncovered another serious espionage case tied to its long-running conflict with Tehran. On Friday, Israeli authorities announced charges against a Russian citizen accused of spying for Iranian intelligence inside Israel. According to Israel's domestic security agency, the Shin Bet, the suspect gathered sensitive information by photographing ports, military vessels, and critical infrastructure across the country. He was allegedly paid in cryptocurrency for his work. The use of cryptocurrency for payment reflects the evolving nature of espionage in the digital age. Traditional methods of transferring funds to agents are increasingly traceable, making digital currencies an attractive alternative for intelligence services seeking to conceal financial connections. Israeli officials are sounding the alarm once again, and this time their warning is aimed directly at President Donald Trump. NBC News reports Israeli officials claim Iran is rebuilding parts of its missile program after earlier strikes. At the same time, Israeli officials say Iran is trying to restore enrichment sites that the U.S. military says it struck. Israeli officials see the missile threat as the most immediate danger. These assessments come from Israeli intelligence and cannot be independently verified. Some analysts and former officials argue Israel's threat assessments can shape U.S. policy debates, while Israeli officials reject that framing. The timing of these warnings is notable. Israel has consistently sought to shape U.S. policy toward Iran. Some observers see the timing as strategic messaging. Israeli officials frame it as urgent security warning. NBC News reported Netanyahu is expected to meet Trump at Mar-a-Lago. During that meeting, Netanyahu is expected to argue that Iran's expanding missile production poses an urgent threat, not just to Israel, but to the entire region, including U.S. interests. The meeting comes at a critical moment. Relations between the two leaders have been close, but decisions about further military action against Iran carry significant risks and consequences. Trump has also hosted some high-profile meetings at Mar-a-Lago outside Washington's usual channels. The informal setting allows for extended discussions, but critics argue it also reduces oversight and transparency in decision-making on matters of war and peace. Sources told NBC News that Netanyahu plans to present Trump with options for new military action, including scenarios where the United States could join or support additional strikes against Iran. This would not be the first time Netanyahu has presented such options. Sources cited by NBC News say Israel previously laid out multiple strike options, ranging from acting alone to joint operations. Trump ultimately approved a combined assault. Sources say Netanyahu may return with a similar playbook, but whether Trump will approve further escalation remains uncertain. The pattern of Israeli leaders presenting U.S. presidents with military options has been a consistent feature of the relationship. Israel's strategic calculations often depend on securing American support, or at least American acquiescence, for military action in the region. Netanyahu has built his political career in part on his relationship with American presidents and his ability to influence U.S. policy toward Iran. His presentation to Trump will likely emphasize shared interests while downplaying potential costs and complications of further military action. While Iran has expressed interest in resuming diplomatic talks with Washington, Israeli officials remain deeply skeptical. They believe Tehran is using diplomacy as cover, buying time to rebuild its military capabilities while engaging in negotiations. This assessment reflects Israel's long-standing position that Iran cannot be trusted to negotiate in good faith. Critics argue Israel has consistently opposed diplomatic solutions that might limit its freedom of action against Iran. The 2015 Iran nuclear deal, which Israel vehemently opposed, demonstrated that diplomatic agreements with Tehran are possible, though the deal's ultimate collapse after the U.S. withdrawal remains a subject of debate. Israeli officials argue the deal was flawed. Supporters counter that it successfully constrained Iran's nuclear program while it was in in effect. Earlier this year, U.S. and Israeli strikes targeted Iranian facilities. The massive American operation known as Operation Midnight Hammer reportedly involved more than 100 aircraft, B-2 bombers, submarines, and bunker-busting bombs. President Trump declared Iran's nuclear sites obliterated, though early intelligence assessments suggested the damage may not have been as extensive as claimed. Israeli strikes, meanwhile, reportedly crippled Iran's ballistic missile facilities and destroyed its advanced S-300 air defense systems, allowing Israeli aircraft unprecedented access to Iranian airspace, according to Israeli officials. The gap between Trump's public declarations and intelligence assessments highlights a recurring pattern in military operations. Political leaders often overstate success, while the full picture emerges more slowly. Iran's apparent recovery, if Israeli assessments are accurate, would suggest the June strikes were less decisive than initially portrayed. But now Israeli officials fear Iran is recovering, and fast. According to sources briefed on Israel's assessments, Iran could produce up to 3,000 ballistic missiles per month if left unchecked. That figure comes from Israeli intelligence and cannot be independently verified. Israeli officials argue that volume would overwhelm defenses and help Iran better protect future nuclear enrichment sites. The 3,000 missiles per month figure, if accurate, would represent a massive industrial capacity. However, such claims should be viewed with caution. Intelligence assessments, particularly those shared selectively with media, often serve policy objectives as much as informational purposes. Independent verification of Iranian production capabilities is extremely difficult. Israeli officials believe that once Iran rebuilds its missiles and air defenses, it could rapidly restart its nuclear program, shielded by firepower. This assessment reflects Israel's long-standing concern that Iran's missile program and nuclear ambitions are interconnected. Israeli officials argue that allowing Iran to rebuild its conventional defenses makes any future strike on nuclear facilities far more difficult. The argument is designed to create urgency for action before Iran's defenses are restored. Trump has sent mixed signals on Iran. He has hinted at openness to renewed talks while also issuing stark warnings. If Iran attempts to rebuild without a deal, the U.S. would obliterate that one too, Trump said, according to reports. The mixed messaging reflects competing pressures. Some advisors favor continued military pressure, while others argue for diplomatic engagement. Trump's ultimate decision will shape the trajectory of U.S.-Iran relations. Trump's approach to Iran has oscillated between maximum pressure and openness to negotiation throughout his political career. His willingness to approve the June strikes demonstrated he is prepared to use force, but his business-oriented worldview also makes him receptive to deals. Netanyahu will need to navigate these competing impulses. But the decision comes at a delicate moment. A fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is faltering, and friction over Gaza could complicate support for another war front. American officials have expressed frustration with the pace of negotiations over Gaza. Opening a new front against Iran while Gaza remains unresolved would stretch resources and attention. Still, Israeli officials insist the threat is real and growing. The Gaza situation creates a complex backdrop for any Iran decision. American public opinion on Middle East military involvement has grown more skeptical, and another war could face political headwinds. Netanyahu must balance his Iran agenda against the need to manage the Gaza situation in ways that maintain U.S. support. Israeli officials frame the threat in stark terms. While Israel believes it can dominate Iran from the air, one danger remains impossible to ignore, they say: the missiles. And this time, Israeli officials warn they may be coming in numbers never seen before. The framing is designed to create urgency. Whether the threat assessment is accurate or represents Israeli pressure for U.S. support cannot be independently verified. Iran has consistently maintained that its missile program is defensive in nature and not subject to negotiation. Tehran argues it needs missile capabilities to deter aggression from Israel and the United States, a position that has hardened since the June strikes. Prosecutors identified the suspect as Vitaly Zvyagintsev, a Russian national who had been living in Israel on a work permit. Investigators say he was in contact with an Iranian intelligence handler from early October until his arrest on December 4th. The case highlights the intersection of Israeli-Iranian tensions with Russia, a country that has maintained relations with both Israel and Iran while navigating its own complex geopolitical position. Israeli prosecutors say he photographed naval vessels, including an armed merchant cruiser belonging to the United States Navy and a Dolphin-class submarine operated by the Israeli Navy. These assets are considered highly sensitive due to their strategic importance. The Dolphin-class submarines are widely reported to be capable of carrying nuclear-armed cruise missiles, though Israel maintains a policy of nuclear ambiguity. For each task, Zvyagintsev was allegedly paid hundreds of dollars in digital currency. Investigators believe the payments were made this way to conceal the financial trail and avoid detection. The targeting of Israeli submarine facilities is particularly significant. Israel's submarine fleet is believed to provide a second-strike nuclear capability, the ability to retaliate even after a first strike on Israeli territory. Intelligence about these assets would be highly valuable to any adversary planning military operations against Israel. The alleged espionage operation ended earlier this month when Israeli security forces arrested Zvyagintsev at the Ramat David Air Force Base. According to prosecutors, he had already taken photographs of the base and was preparing to pass them on to his handler when he was detained. The investigation was conducted jointly by the Shin Bet and the Defense Ministry's Internal Security Unit, known by its Hebrew acronym MALMAB. Zvyagintsev has now been charged in Israel's Central District Court with maintaining contact with a foreign agent and passing information to the enemy. The charges carry significant penalties under Israeli law. The case will be closely watched as it proceeds through the court system. Israeli officials have presented the arrest as evidence of ongoing Iranian intelligence operations targeting Israel. Zvyagintsev has now been charged in Israel's Central District Court with maintaining contact with a foreign agent and passing information to the enemy. The charges carry significant penalties under Israeli law. The case will be closely watched as it proceeds through the court system. Israeli officials have presented the arrest as evidence of ongoing Iranian intelligence operations targeting Israel. Israeli officials say this case fits a broader pattern. In recent months, Israel has arrested dozens of people suspected of spying for Iran. Israeli officials describe it as Tehran's largest effort in decades to infiltrate Israel. Iranian intelligence agencies have repeatedly attempted to recruit individuals inside Israel, often offering money in exchange for surveillance and intelligence gathering, according to Israeli authorities. In a statement issued last year after earlier arrests, Iran's mission to the United Nations did not confirm or deny such efforts. Instead, it said that any recruitment would logically focus on non-Iranian and non-Muslim individuals to reduce suspicion. The statement was notable for its indirect acknowledgement of intelligence operations while avoiding direct confirmation. Iran has consistently denied involvement in terrorism and espionage while maintaining its right to defend itself against Israeli aggression. The case unfolds amid heightened tensions. After years of covert conflict, Israel and Iran clashed directly in June when Israel carried out strikes inside Iran. Since that confrontation, Iran has executed dozens of people accused of having links to Israel's Mossad. Human rights organizations have raised concerns about the fairness of those trials and the use of the death penalty. The intelligence battle between the two rivals remains intense and far from over, according to officials on both sides. The wave of arrests in Israel reflects the intensity of the intelligence war. Israeli officials claim to have disrupted multiple Iranian espionage networks in recent months. The suspects have included Israeli citizens, foreign nationals, and residents with various backgrounds. Critics argue that some arrests may be driven by political considerations or exaggerated threat assessments. Israeli authorities maintain that the threat is real and that Iran is actively targeting Israeli infrastructure and military assets. On the Iranian side, the response has been severe. Iran has executed dozens of people accused of spying for Israel since the June confrontation. Iranian officials say the executions are necessary to deter espionage and protect national security. Human rights organizations have condemned the executions, arguing that defendants were denied fair trials and that some confessions may have been coerced. Iran rejects these criticisms. The executions highlight the deadly stakes of the intelligence war. Both countries treat espionage as a capital offense in certain circumstances, and individuals caught in the middle face severe consequences regardless of the validity of the charges against them. The dual stories, Israel warning Trump about Iranian missiles and the arrest of an alleged Iranian spy, illustrate the multi-front conflict between Israel and Iran. On the military front, Israeli officials are pushing for continued pressure on Iran, presenting Trump with options for further strikes. Their assessment that Iran could produce 3,000 missiles per month, if accurate, would represent a significant threat. That figure comes from Israeli intelligence and cannot be independently verified. On the intelligence front, both countries are engaged in an espionage war that shows no sign of abating. Israel claims to have disrupted Iranian networks. Iran has responded with executions of alleged Israeli agents. Netanyahu's upcoming meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago will be closely watched. The Israeli prime minister is expected to argue for continued military pressure on Iran, but whether Trump will approve further escalation remains uncertain. The fragile Gaza ceasefire, domestic political considerations, and the uncertain outcome of any military action all weigh on the decision. What is clear is that the Israel-Iran conflict, whether through missiles, strikes, or spies, remains one of the most volatile flashpoints in the Middle East, and the next chapter may be written at Mar-a-Lago. The decisions made in the coming weeks could determine whether the region sees another round of military escalation or a potential diplomatic off-ramp. For now, both paths remain open, and both Israel and Iran appear to be preparing for either outcome.